Then we go to the last panelist, that's Alexander Natz. Alexander Natz is Secretary General of EUCOPE, and EUCOPE stands for the European Confederation of Pharmaceutical Entrepreneurs. Before that, Mr. Natz was also head of the Brussels office of the Bundesverband der pharmazeutischen Industrie. And before that, you had a many years of experience as a lawyer and in academia. And sorry to summarize your experience in one sentence, but it's up to you.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thanks also for all the speakers before. Thanks for inviting me. Great to be here to speak a little bit, to take a bit the broader picture about the legislation, which we are currently discussing in Brussels. We've heard from Fabio Deatri, there's a lot on the agenda. I must say that when I look at the legislation that has passed over the last, what is it, like 3-4 years, it's really a massive speed in terms of new legislation. And I would also like to echo that there are definitely some very positive elements here. And I would like to start off talking a little bit with about the positive elements. But before I'm going there, I would like to start off with a study which we recently commissioned and published for the economic footprint study. How are our members impacted by the broader picture? And here I'm really talking about the bigger geopolitical situation. And I would like to bring in also some elements in my discussion which are beyond what we're doing here in Brussels, because actually what drives companies, and I think many stakeholders today, is also very much most favored nation policies in the United States. We are having discussions about access in European countries, which I, at least personally, could have not foreseen 2 years ago, that we would have to really convince companies to come to Europe, to launch their products in Europe, given the fact that there is now international reference pricing and that the prices which are published in the majority of our countries are directly imported back or exported back to the United States. It's a phenomenon which is not to be underestimated. It's a phenomenon where we have difficulties to react, I must say, because it's not all in our own hands. And in that setting, I would really like to say a big thank you also to the people in DG Santé, because I do see there is a clear understanding that we need to react to that geopolitical situation. Of course, we are fully aware in industry it can't be a wish list from like what we all wanted to see happening, and there are limitations also in terms of like what we can do in terms of pricing and reimbursement. But I would want to mention that it's really important that we're having these discussions not only here today. The study which we have commissioned really focused very much on those results of most favored nation policies, and we could see that some of our members have centrally approved medicines in the markets. Others are smaller companies, companies that are clearly having the intention to launch their products and to bring their products to European patients. But today, I must say, and that's also one finding of the study, they are holding back these type of decisions. We have a couple of members, at not at least 10, which are member to our organization, which have been, to be very concrete, which have teams sitting in Zurich and Zug, but which are not yet here with their products, but which are holding back those type of decisions. And again, this is not so much about the EU HTA. I mean, it's not so much about what we're doing here, but it's very much about this phenomenon of international reference pricing and most favored nation policies. And maybe that gets me to my next slide. Maybe that's part of the reason that slide needs to be updated. I heard today there's a 15th announced. I didn't know about that. So I think yesterday it was still 13. But certainly, we had expected more. I would say we had expected more products in the scope of the JCA, and that's a phenomenon which might indirectly also be related to the fact that there is this holding back situation. And it's not, let me be very clear, it's not in the interest of the patients. It is not. It's by far not a very positive development, but it is due to the unpredictability, and it's due to the unpredictability which we see in all those US programs where it's not clear, do they apply to orphan drugs, when do they apply, and so on and so forth. So I think I just wanted to make that very clear. Now, when we look at this slide, which again needs to be updated, but 3 ATMP products. Maybe there's one more, if I understand correctly now. But it's a good majority of small and mid-sized companies, 8 out of 13. From the new companies, there's also, I think, a Miltenyi Biotech product in there now, a CAR T-cell product, so it's another small and mid-sized company. So I would say it's fair to say that even more than the half of the companies are mid-sized companies. And those companies, I'd like to make that point very clear, also need the support in navigating that process, because the process, and we had very good discussions. I'd like to say also a big thank you to the HTA Secretariat and the unit in the Commission. There are great horizontal discussions which we're having. We have open discussions, but still those companies are not necessarily around the table. And for us to translate that to those companies is not always possible, because it's always product specific. How do I need to design my clinical trial and so on and so forth? It's not like where I can help with a horizontal discussion. So we need to increase the interaction. That's still needed at whatever level is possible. We do understand the limitations. Also, I must say we very clearly understand also that the member states and also the Secretariat is prioritizing the JCAs in terms of you have your own limitations in terms of people behind those files, but it's still needed that we have this interaction and that we need the smaller companies, because the same like what we have discussed in the AMNOG in the early phases, the worst thing you can have is a poor dossier. The worst thing you can have is a dossier which is not meeting the expectations of the assessors, and then you have a poor outcome, and the poor outcome will lead to poor decisions at the member state level. So it's all about quality, and it's all about, I think, also support for those smaller companies as well. But I'm not only talking here about smaller companies. I would even say also the bigger companies find challenges in navigating this new procedure with multiple PICO schemes. I don't want to repeat the messages and the stories which we have talked about. It's about support, and it's also a bit of it's a bit of interaction, or more interaction, that is needed at the product-specific level. Very briefly, I know I'm running out of time, but the Biotech Act certainly moves in the right direction. I would say a great initiative, very important really to focus at clinical trials. I think we have a bit of a little element there on the bottom and on the right. Maybe we could talk in that setting also about the question whether we can increase opportunities for dialogue in the JCA and in the EU HTA in its totality. But overall, I would think important initiatives, but it needs not to be forgotten that until they take effect, it will be 3, 4, and maybe even 5 years until we see results. We also need some short-term measures. We also need to work with the existing legislation, and that's sometimes what I'm missing a little bit here in Brussels these days, that we're not, for example, really, and I know maybe that's not popular with payers, as I say, but we have a transparency directive, and the transparency directive is saying we need to make decisions in 180 days about pricing and reimbursement. What is it worth? I have a great JCA outcome or a good report, but a member state is still delaying into 250 days to make a decision. So we also need to really apply our legislation in order also to show to the rest of the world that we are writing competitiveness of the industry in bigger letters. It's just not worth doing the whole exercise we're talking about here, but then delaying access because we can't agree on price and so on. So we need to stick to our legislation, and here and there maybe also we need to have some short-term measures here. We can't always wait for new legislation to make it to the official journal. It's not a criticism. It's good that we have the new legislation, but we need to also apply the existing legislation. I'll be very brief, running out of time here. Critical Medicines Act, I must say, a very honest answer from me personally. I'm a bit worried that if we're, and I've heard it from Mr. Sokol, if we would all impose joint procurement on all orphan medicinal products, I think, to be honest, we're adding a new layer, which is new complexity, which is not necessarily leading to the results which some people might want to foresee with it. I'm not so much convinced that this would lead to more access, but I'm happy to be proven the opposite. But I just wanted to mention that we have to be really at this point in time where there are so many new layers, we have to be a bit careful in not adding too many new layers. Give us some time to digest an industry, give us some time to implement all that new legislation in the GPL, in the EU HTA and various other measures. And it needs some time for us also to put it in practice and to make sure that we got it right. And this is first and foremost the EU HTA, where we're having those great horizontal discussions. First experience is very brief. I think I can skip most of that and come to a close. I think overall, very good discussions. I made my point that I think there is a bit of support needed for the smaller companies, more interactions. I think I made that point very clear. And again, a big thank you also to the Commission, because it's not the first time we're saying that. We know you're listening to us. We know it's not easy to implement it because it's not foreseen in the legislation and for certain limitations. But we just have to bring it back to the table from time to time. So yeah, overall, I'm really curious to see and discuss with you the outcomes of the first procedure. I think Valentina, you mentioned is soon to be released, so really looking forward to that. Lots of things to be discussed for our little panel discussion here. I'm running out of time. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will join the panelists over there.
Thank you, Alexander, for bringing us back with the foot on the ground as what is nice on the paper then needs to be implemented.